tapping on the ground. Slowly, faster. Slowly, brighter. Together, we will create the beginning of everything. The Big Bang. On my cue, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, now! The spark, the thought, an idea. What if it all could be different? Now, what if we could make fire out of stone? Oh, that's nice, Uncle. Nice. What if we could write down words and people from 100 years later would be able to read them? Fascinating, right? Now what if there was a woman who discovered something as radiation and kept looking while her hands grew black while doing the work. Amazing. And what if someone in his garage would think, I will connect my computer to the computer of my friend. And the internet was born. Astonishing. Now what if the idea that you have right here today might change everything we know of our time and the future? People make time, but ideas make history. But a time machine does not run on technology. No, sir. It runs on you. And on you. It runs on everybody that in our current time dares to think of an idea that might seem impossible tomorrow. That's what it runs on. Or what if someone would pass by to tell us how it ends?
Did I make it?
You should not be in the program yet.
Is this the right time?
Why are you here?
Well, let's say I'm a traveler and a visitor, just like you all here. From perhaps 2,996 years in the future.
5021?
Give or take. But in my time, we stopped counting. In our calendars, we had ideas, not deadlines. And we moved through this innovation space.
And how did you get here, actually?
Well, just like the rest of you, not by rocket, not by car, but actually by idea. And by asking what if, how, why.
And if I may ask, what is it like in your time, the future? I might know, but I'm just curious.
Of course, no questions are too big. Let's say it's calmer. It's complicated. We're actually living underwater now, and we have these forests that go with the currents. We're able to do this not because we chose to, but because the climate did. But it's not all that. Sometimes in future, we don't have bosses. We are able to communicate collectively, working together. And we find that with no deadlines, we still make it work.
Nice. sounds great. But I do think you could use some ideas of our current time, maybe?
Yes, exactly. That is why I am here.
Yes.
Because any innovation that comes through,
Yes.
we actually need these innovations. We need these weird ideas to bring us forwards towards the future.
Yes.
And it's usually the weirdest ones that seem to stick.
I like that. Now, I actually might know somebody who would be interested in telling us something about this.
Really?
Yes, I've met him a while ago. He actually works on the battery of the future with the whole team. It's quite fascinating. I hope he's here, though. Let's see if he's here. Can I have a warm welcome for Christian Rood from Leiden Job? Very good. So nice that you were able to make it.
Thanks, Rick. It feels good to be back after 9 years.
Very good.
And startup entrepreneurs tend to look forward and not really back, but that's a pity, right?
Yes.
Because only if you look back you understand what journey you already have traveled. So welcome, my name is Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Leiden Technologies. And thanks for the opportunity to tell a little bit the story of Leiden, because this is what I like a lot. This is where we start. So this is myself and Gabe here at Plant. I think it's downstairs, right? A little bit around that corner. And we started Leiden Technology. And basically this could be you and your co-founder, right? It's exactly the same starting position of the story. And why did we start Leiden? Well, let's travel a little bit back to my childhood. As a boy, I really wanted to become rich. And I wanted to build a big, nice company. But I was also a little bit concerned. And that was because I had to do a presentation at the school. As a small boy, I think I might have been 10 or so, I read in this magazine called Kijk, some of you might know it, about greenhouse gas. And that was really a problem. So I presented about it at school and everybody thought, oh yeah, why bother? Right? Nobody really solved the problem. And I felt somewhere, shit, we need to do something about it. Because if we don't, the world becomes unlivable. And to be honest, I forgot about that. Only later I realized that was... and Leiden was basically a spark of both. So I saw a technology which can be impactful for that problem. I also saw a very nice company that could become very valuable and big. And what it kind of had in common is this theme of electrifying. So we all understand that you can generate clean electricity. You need to electrify everything to make that happen. And for that, you need batteries. So, good batteries, right? Batteries with a lot of energy. And just imagine you have batteries which are much better, then we can innovate quite a lot, right? We can come up with real smart devices where AI can really make a difference. We can come up with electric vehicles that not only have a long range, but also can become affordable because with a much smaller battery pack, right? You can still have a good range, and that allows it to become more affordable. And the dream, of course, is electric flying, right? It will only take off, but will only fly if you have enough energy compared to volume or the kilowatts. And that's the problem, because it's not happening. And that is because there's a bottleneck, and the bottleneck you have to go inside the battery cell. And yes, there are layers that are the positive layers and the cathode, and there are layers inside the battery that are the negative layer, the anode. And the anode is the problem. It's just not good enough anymore to store more energy in the same liter or kilogram. So this is what we do, right? We replace this bottleneck by an anode layer which is much, much better. And for that you need a different material, and that is pure silicon, silicium. Right? So instead of graphite, carbon, we produce an anode with pure silicon. and we're not novel. The whole industry, the battery industry, is looking for silicon. How can we deploy it? But we're the only ones worldwide that can make a pure silicon anode. And the secret is what you're staring at. You see this kind of a broccoli, cauliflower type structure? So if you zoom in into the silicon, our silicon is growing in a columnar shape. And that's the secret. I'm not going to explain all the technicalities, that's for after drinks. But that makes us unique. And with this anode, you can really make battery cells with a super high energy density. And super high, I mean the highest in the world. So by far, we now have the highest volumetric energy density, so that's watt-hours in a liter, in the world. And we do that by replacing the anode with our anode. It not only leads to more energy, but we can also get the energy out and in faster, so that's power. So imagine you have a car where you want to charge your battery cell. It basically gets to 80% in only 7 minutes. I think that's even older now, 6 minutes, so we're really improving that. And does anybody have an idea of how much this energy density is improving per year? Any guess? 1%? 10% per year? Yeah, anybody else?
2%.
4?
2%.
2%. Yeah, it's actually 3% per year. So no Moore's law in batteries, right? It's very flat. And that's because you only improve incrementally things, so the world's really looking for a radical solution. One step back. Why in heaven's name is there a solution in Leiden? What does Leiden have to do with the battery industry, right? This sounds a little bit too good to be true. So now we go back in time, 279 years, where Van Musselbroek, the guy with the curly hair, invented the Leiden jar, the Leidse fles. Sounds a little less techy in Dutch, right? The Leidse fles. But it is a remarkable instrument, because at that time, Newton, published his works on physics. It was a bit abstract. And they had no idea what electricity really was. They thought it was ether, a kind of unknown medium. And this is why it's a jar, because they thought they had to collect that ether in a jar. Right? And this was basically the first device to store electricity. So if we talk about electrifying everything, this basically started in Leiden. And it didn't just stay in Leiden. This is Benjamin Franklin. And some of you might know him. He's on the $100 bill. But he's one of the founding fathers of the US. And this guy could do everything, right? He was also an inventor. You can see him on this painting. Famous painting where he did a kite experiment, and basically he demonstrated that lightning is also electricity. And if you look very well, here, you see, right? It's the Leiden jar, right? He used the Leiden jar to store this electricity. And if I talk to Americans, they all know the Leiden jar. If I talk to the Dutch people, Leiden jar, there's no idea, but all the Americans know, because this is what they get in science education, right? They understand this. So yes, Leiden has a role to play in the battery field. It's actually Benjamin Franklin who coined the term battery. Battery is a military term, right? It stands for a combination of guns, right? Artillery. And what he did experiments with a number of those Leiden jars, and he called it the battery of Leiden jars. So, yes, in Leiden there's something to do about batteries. Now, going back in real time, again, we're helping the Americans. How? Consumer electronic firms really want to deploy AI in devices, make these devices much smarter, because ultimately this is what you want. You want to have assistants close by and wearables. And batteries are simply not good enough. And this is our first go-to-market, right? We're working with one of the leading American consumer electronic devices companies and their cell partner to increase. I can show you later. I have one with me, but it's relatively small, so maybe after the presentation you want to have a look. But these are the prototype cells that our cell partner is now making with our anode, and will be used to really create a very new device. Really, really exciting. But it doesn't stop there, because basically all lithium-ion batteries can be replaced with our anode. Right? We have to do more R&D to also make it suitable for cars. We have to produce it at mass scale, but this is certainly part of our objective. How do we do that? Not just in Leiden, right? Eindhoven is a pretty important place for us. This is where we make the pure silicon anodes. This is one of our tools. And just to get an idea of the scale, this would be a person, right? So it's pretty damn big machine. And we're basically deploying a semicon technology for batteries, right? We're a crossover, so we deploy technology used for semicon into batteries. And this is where we're quite innovative. And we're planning to do that at large scale. So this is our very originally called Plant 1, where we'll make kilometers of this anode foil that we will ship to battery makers so that they can integrate it in their cells. So this will come online in 27, and we'll make the first material for products I just mentioned. So what are we doing in Leiden? Yeah, a lot. This is now our fourth location, so we are in Plus Ultra. We started here, top left, and then we went to the Mailfabriek. It's exciting because instead of 20 square meters, we could go to 50 square meters, so that was a big expansion. And then we went to Biopartner 4 because we want to have our own battery lab. And this is what we now have in Leiden. And it's not modest to say, but this is one of the world's best battery prototype labs. Not that we are saying it, our clients are saying it, right? If you look at all those silicon anode companies, this is really one of the best. So that's what we're doing in Leiden. Started the company because we want to become rich, but also have some impact. So maybe rich that will hopefully happen one day, but impact for sure we will have earlier. So in terms of the environment, we have a double impact. So the anode that we're making has much lower carbon footprint than usual. Any idea how much? There was a hint already in the presentation, that's all, but if you haven't noticed it. 85%, yeah, you read the figure. So 85% lower carbon footprint, because the battery is not that clean. You have to do a lot of mining to make that happen, right? So silicon basically is sand, right? Second most abundant material on Earth. And because it's very thin, it needs less material, so that drives really this 85% lower carbon footprint. And it's double impact because if we are able also to use this for e-flight and electric vehicles, then we have that double. We enable cleaner products. Basically, 9 years ago, I didn't realize it, but the world has changed in 9 years. So access to material, safety, defense, dependence on the US and Asia in general, right? Those are concerns that have grown in the last 9 years. So also there, this is pretty important, right? Because there's so many side effects of innovation that it's really important, I think, that we have something like that in Europe. And there's a bit of a control point. No, we're not ASML, we're not that big, but yes, it's important to have technologies like this that really influence the innovation. And so we're happy to be sponsored, financed by the European Investment Bank, and we do believe in our scale up, that's pretty important. And finally, the impact obviously is on innovation. Now, to close it off, this is basically also you and your co-founder, right? And imagining that you're going to build a great new company. And do that. Think big and share it with others, because inspiring others with your vision is super important to basically get the support of others. You see Constantine, who joined us here, I think also 9 years ago or so in this tour. And Constantine is still helping us with his network and learning with other scale-ups, super important. And grit. Grit is super important, right? Not just the vision, but getting it done is pretty tough. But it might just happen, right? That after a while, you actually change the physical world, and then people will ask you, what happened, right? What happened? And it's that, right? Your vision and your grit and inspiring others. That's it. Thanks very much. I guess we can do a little Q&A, or did I talk to all my time?
No, definitely not. I actually happen to have a magical cube called the catch box, which enables people to ask questions through this box as well. But have you managed to store time by any chance?
Store time?
No.
No, I always.
But maybe some collaboration going on over here. Got a little business in time,
Very good.
But anyway, let's see if there are some questions in the room. Who'd like to answer a question to Christian? Any hands?
So, does this work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious. Why is the anode the limiting factor?
It's a little bit technical, but carbon can store only a limited amount of lithium ions per gram, right? And that's 350 milliampere hour per gram, and that's it. So the only way to store more energy is either by working with the cathode, but if you improve the plus, you have to improve the minus as well. And the only way now to do it is basically adding more material. So it will become thicker and more heavy.
Okay. Do you expect that in the future, if the anode gets to a sufficiently improved degree, that the cathode will prove to be a limiting factor?
Yeah.
If so, any ideas on how to improve that?
Yeah, so no, we're not focusing on the cathode, but we do work with cell manufacturers that are improving that cathode as well. And if we add on the minus, then basically the plus becomes the bottleneck. If they improve that, we can further improve our impact, basically by growing our anode a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's kind of future-proof, right? As long as the cathode is improving further, we will improve as well.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Excellent. You may throw it to the next person who's interested to ask a question.
There you go.
I'm curious, what would you say is the most promising alternative to batteries? If you say, okay, batteries are the one thing we need, but is there also maybe another alternative where you say, okay, this might be for some...
Yeah, I think so. We work with plasma deposition. That's our core technology. This a little bit mystical way to basically grow thin layers in a different way. And you can really steer that. And I think that technology, if you make it more economic, what we're trying to do for the battery space, it's also very beneficial for other climate technologies. For instance, for direct air capture or for making hydrogen. So I believe this is an opportunity for the Netherlands. Because the Eindhoven area is super good in thin film technology, that you can deploy it to much more climate type of technology. Yeah? There's one thing that's super important. You cannot make a climate technology at big scale that can hardly ask a price. Right? So if you are in the commodity space, you cannot really compete with the Chinese or with others. They will always outpace you. So you have to combine your climate angle with a performance angle. And I think a thin layer could really be the best of both worlds. In our case, you can add more layers in the same liter of battery, that's your energy density. But a very thin layer also allows you to have a very low carbon footprint. So that combination I think is super interesting. But for now I'm focused on batteries because that's still hard. Who else?
Thank you. So, what industries will have the first beneficial of your product?
Yeah, consumer electronics. Yeah, consumer electronics.
Okay.
So those are smartphones, wearables, power tools, we also see drones as part of that. That's the first application because the prices are much better. There's a very big need for a lot of energy in limited space. And the performance criteria are not as extreme as, for instance, in cars, where you want to drive your electric vehicle for at least 10 years with a good battery. It means you have to charge distance 1,000, 1,500 cycles. And consumer electronics is basically limited to 500 cycles. Right? So for us, that's the immediate market we can address. If you want to go for electric vehicles, you need to demonstrate a 10 gigawatt hour. Now, the machine that we're developing now for first commercial use is 20 megawatt hour per year. So you basically need 50 of those to get to 1 gigawatt hour. And then you need times 10 to get to automotive. So that's just impossible to reach immediately. You really have to do it in basically base camp by base camp in your path.
And then I had a question on top of that. There was that you say consumer products, they are pretty on the low end of pricing. The technology that you described was pretty innovative. What's the cost, not specifically, but is it expensive to create what you guys are creating?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. So,
Okay, good question.
yeah, so basically we're doing three things at the row, and that's the challenge of also of technology, right? Because you have to do what's not been done before. And nobody applied chip technology into the battery space. So you not only have to look at what's your best anode, but you have to make the machine that makes that anode as well. And then you have to use the anode and look at the battery performance because nobody's interested in the anode by itself. You're interested in the battery performance. So there's three things you have to do, and you have to finance that without any turnover. So we basically already raised 80 million of funding over those 9 years. It's really like a domino stone type of approach. And we started 9 years ago with 300,000 euros. And we could do a year and a half with that. And now we're just raising another 30 million. We're going to announce after summer 30 million rounds again. And yeah, it's very costly. But the price is also big, right? You can really make a difference in the battery industry. And you can work with any cell partner. And scalability by itself is good. So it's high risk, high reward. A lot of high risk in the beginning, right? That's
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Another person with a question, maybe. Ah, the other side of the room. How can you throw? Yes, there you go. Up.
My question is very different. If you were to go back in time, what's the thing that you would have done completely different? Or that you regret doing?
You know, in the beginning you have this thing, and you guys are working on it as well, it's called product market fit. So what's actually the product, where's really the demand, especially if technologies are a little bit broader, and there is some exploration in that, but I think with hindsight I would have stopped talking to the automotive industry earlier and focus on consumer electronics.
Sorry, it's funny because we're in the automotive
Ah, good. Not talking with them.
You should have coffee, I think. This is good.
Yeah.
Next one, I saw some hands in the back.
I think the other lady in the bus.
There we go.
Does your company also produce silicon from sand directly?
No, we basically use the gaseous form of silicon, which is called silane, SiH4. And basically what our technology does, we put it in a vacuum chamber, and then with an electromagnetic device, you create a plasma out of it. I always explain you basically shoot off the hydrogen atoms, and then the silicon grows plasma.
And then a follow-up question. How long do your batteries last?
You mean how long can you use them? It depends on the use case. So basically our technology now 500-600 cycles. That means if you fully charge and fully discharge, which you don't do in reality, right? then you can do it, let's say, 600 times, and then you have 80% of your original capacity left. That's basically the industry way to say dead. It's not dead, still has 80%, but that's kind of the definition. And in practice, it depends on the application. For instance, you have these fitness wearables. Basically, one cycle would be a whole week, so then it would be 1 week times 500-600.
And then when it's dead, you can't reuse the parts, right?
You still have 80%, so in theory you can still do it, but it becomes less predictable. Because you want to have predictable degradation, and usually after 80% it becomes a little bit more unpredictable.
I got word from my timekeepers that the box has to return to the time spent. Thank you very much. Christian, we'd like to thank you very much. And a round of applause for I'm missing a clicker, Christian. Is it? It's back there. I knew that. There we go. So, that was quite impressive. What? Wait, you're back.
Well, of course.
What is this?
Now, this is from the future. Some of you might recognize this nice little fellow. He escaped out of the hands of Tice and Rebecca from Biopartner because we need him. He is going to help us. But Timmy, our time capsule, cannot be opened until the past, present, and future have been joined together.
That is true. And that is why we need you today, here at Pnlt. You will go through 3 eras of time full of stories, inspiration, and sparks. You will go to the past, where you will enter the museum of failed innovations, ideas that have crashed and crumbled in order to be paving way for the innovations that we currently know. Led by startup coach Betty Huerta, where are you, darling? There in the corner, love you. She will help you during this workshop to make sure that your current idea and innovation will not end up on the museum walls. That's a promise. As well, you are able to visit the present, a startup market where you will see the makers, the doers and the dreamers of today shaping the future right here, right now. You will be able to touch what comes next and have a glimpse of what the future beholds in our present day.
And there's nothing without also touching the future. Now, we have several great things to be able to show you today. First